Cheryl is the current executive director of the County Commissioners Association, and she gets a badge of honor because dealing with all the county commissioners in small, medium, and large-sized counties is quite a task, Herculean, and as you can see, she's managed to survive well, and she's also going to update you because she's been living at the State House recently as far as what's going on still to come. That's Cheryl with the red coat on. And then Alex is from Trumbull County, and we have what I call a real person outside of Columbus who knows what the real world is doing out there, which is important to understand that perspective, and they're going to give a little update on hot topics, rising risk. But I did warn them not to get into explaining the difference of inside millage versus outside millage on property taxes. And we won't solve property taxes today either, but we got enough of it to cover. So I'm happy to turn it over for our next panel on hot topics and rising risk. And remember about evaluation forms and also on CLEs. That's important for attorneys, but you can get the paperwork outside at the end of the program. So it's all yours, Cheryl and Alex. We're happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Okay, it's after lunch. OH.
I-O.
Oh, come on. OH.
I-O.
Yeah, that's why we're red today. What? I didn't wear green, I wore red, so we're scarlet. Okay, Alex and I really appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today. I'm looking for Jonathan, if he's still in the room, or did he take off? Okay, he must have taken off. Jonathan and some other county HR officials really mentored me in HR realm back in the 90s when I started at CCAO, so it's a pleasure to be back in HR world today. Alex is going to kick off the presentation. She has the bulk of the slides, and I'm sure we'll have lots of time at the end to talk property tax, just like Terry asked me to. So stay tuned.
Hi, everybody. My name's Alex. I'm going to just kind of roll through the HR topics, rising risks, what's shaping local government today. And I just thought this meme was so appropriate. Anybody in this room ever just say, yeah, if you could just ask HR about it, that'd be great. Anybody? Yeah? Okay.
Hunt.
Yep. All right. So we're going to start off with the shifting workforce. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Our agenda today is to discuss topics about the post-state budget, which Cheryl will handle, shifting workforce expectations, workplace bullying and civility concerns, evolving health care plan dynamics, and the integration of new technologies like AI, which we are going to skip because our previous presenter did so great on that. So let's start with the shifting workforce expectations, right? Ohio's public employment landscape is evolving amid multiple magnitudes of changes, including a move away from hybrid work. How many of you in here have moved away from hybrid work? Growth in local public jobs, which is tending to balance the slower state-level recovery, federal job vulnerabilities, especially if funding or agency staffing shrinks, policy shifts, which we all know a lot about, including affirmative action and DEI limits impacting our workforce composition, and of course, AI in the workforce. Show of hands real quick before we get into the bulk of this. Who feels like the public sector workforce is changing faster than they can keep up with? Okay. Shifting workforce expectations. Obviously, the demographics that we're dealing with, the public sector faces a silver tsunami of baby boomers exiting the workforce in record numbers. Think about this. Approximately 10,000 baby boomers reach retirement age every single day. What we're losing with that, it's not just retirement, it's massive knowledge walking out of our doors. Local governments must now compete for younger workers whose career expectations look nothing like what our previous generation's career expectations looked like. So let's talk about economic realities. Those are hitting us just as hard right now. Public sector budgets continue to stay squeezed while service demands keep climbing. Everybody wants more. More police, more fire, more dispatchers, more caseworkers, whatever the case may be, right? Everybody has that expectation. It's a public service. However, there are also economic realities that we have to deal with. The tight labor market also makes everything just a tad bit worse, with unemployment nearing historic lows, job seekers hold the cards they've never had before, which makes it very complex for human resources. Obviously, we already addressed technology, but it is very important to stress, I believe Rachel did a wonderful job, but we do need to begin to go digital. Public sector workers need skills that didn't exist decades ago. There's complex software navigation, data analysis, and cybersecurity protocols. Not that I want to get into what happened within my county, but I actually, one of our county elected officials was hit by a pretty large cyber attack. So it does happen. Please make sure that there's, training in place, and that way you can try your best to avoid it. The old guard retires with institutional knowledge, which is what we lose, and new hires come in with completely different competencies. Social shifts. Today's workers, especially millennials, which I am not going to lie, I am one, and Gen Z prioritize work-life balance and meaningful employment over traditional career ladders. These values, the transformation in values has a profound implication for government employers who must rethink workplace policies to watch talent walk away. Or they'll watch talent walk away, excuse me. Shifting workforce expectations. This is really interesting. So what we tend to find as of 2025 is that only engineering positions are considered hard to fill by more than 70% of respondents. Is there anybody who's bold enough to maybe answer why you think that's the case? Nobody? Okay. Well, typically it's because government sectors can't hire people in at the range that they would like to be at, coming, with an engineer's degree, because our budgets are restricted. But we're going to continue to talk about other areas as well where we see this happening. So engineers is our top, police officers is a close second, followed by registered nurses, corrections officers, IT employees, as well as maintenance workers. So it hits every single one of us in one way, shape, or form. Inflation. Over the past few years, inflation coincided with a decreased perception that public sector wages were competitive. This is extremely interesting. So in about 2022, which we show there, that big dip in the red line, there was what people felt in the public sector, they were paid not fairly, or not for the work that they're doing. They weren't compensated fairly. From 2023, we saw a big shift to 2025, where it became common for governments to conduct compensation and reclassifications studies. Those brought about more broad-based pay increases, as well as some type of targeting hiring bonuses, as you'll see here. So what we're seeing is between 2022 and 2025, that bridge is gapping just a little bit, but at least we're trending upwards in the salary area. Flexible work practices, everybody's favorite, right? Everybody has struggled in some way, shape, or form post-COVID with the return to office. It's been a mantra around large corporations as well as some metro areas, including state governments. Exclusive remote work has declined since in 2021, but it does remain one part of the overall staffing landscape today, with 13% offering some sort of hybrid or flex schedule or something to their employees. All right. Last but not least, we're going to talk about shifting workforce expectation trends, specific to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as an organizational priority, the importance of DEI, state and local governments, has decreased some. There was a clear decline from 2024 to 2025, down about 27%, identified as DEI as being very important. So that is a change, and we do need to think about that differently, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're going to skip through AI because Rachel did a phenomenal job. So let's wrap up with our key takeaways of when preparing for public sector, what our workforce of the future is looking like. Research shows that 38% of organizations expect AI to eliminate certain positions in the coming years. Again, I don't know that I necessarily agree with the 38%, but I do think that it will help streamline and make things more efficient in the government sector. You can't build tomorrow's government on yesterday's public workforce strategies. That couldn't be further from the truth. Recruitment challenges have eased, but retirement wave is still looming. If your organization does not have a succession plan process in place, it should adopt one now, if not ASAP, sooner than later. Prospective employees and younger workforce entrants prioritize public service. However, very few state and local governments build their recruitment campaigns around the ability to contribute to the community. What kind of difference can you make is something that I try to prioritize in all of my interviews. If you tend to make it more about that public sector aspect, a lot of times people want to know, how much am I going to make? What are my benefits going to look like? How much time do I get off? So on and so forth. However, this is a bucket that I really think is important. What if we shift that trajectory to be, what difference can you make in the role that you're about to embark on? And really hone in on those capabilities. The skill set that got your employees hired 5 years ago won't carry them through the next 5. Upskilling and reskilling, also known as training, right? So training needs to be continuous. Flexible work policies are not one size fits all. Experimentation ranges from hybrid arrangements to alternative start times. Encourage departments to find what works best for them. Diversity takes many forms. So as we've seen a little bit of a shift away from the importance, or what people feel the importance is, of DEI, it is also important to change the way in which we view diversity. Diversity isn't just gender, religion. Diversity comes with many other aspects, like neurodiverse backgrounds with the capacity to be upskilled after hiring, people who are looking to re-enter the workforce, what they bring to the table, people's past experiences, skills acquired through alternative pathways. All of those things matter, and those make us diverse people. All right, so we're gonna transition into healthcare. Why everybody's here today, right? Dun, dun, dun. All right, so I would like to just ask real quick to poll the room, how many of you in this room have seen a significant increase in healthcare costs over the past year? Yeah, that does not surprise me. Research is gonna show that, guys. But specific, we're gonna really hone in on Ohio. Ohio's public employment labor landscape continues to combat rising healthcare increase. Those increase hit not only us as the employer, but also us as the employee as well, right? There are no signs of indicating any type of slowing or reduction of costs, unfortunately. What's driving that is medical claims continue to increase due to rise in health conditions. Specifically, we're seeing a huge increase in cancer, musculoskeletal conditions, cardiovascular conditions, diabetes, and mental health. Pair that with economy-wide inflation within the healthcare fields. Pharmacy spend continues to increase due to the rise in economy inflation as well as healthcare fields. We're gonna dive into some more medical increases. So guys, medical claims continue to increase nation and statewide. Ohio specifically continues to see increases in serious health conditions, as we talked about. Employers can't escape increases in costs. Whether they buy into a fully insured or create a self-funded plan, in either case, the premiums they must pay have to be high enough to pay for the employee's covered medical expenses. The employer must be actuarially sound. So, in general, when employees come to me and say, why is my health care going up? Great question. I tend to lead with transparency. I'm not going to show them what the claims are per se for what, but I will show them this is our average spend on claims per month, guys. That directly correlates to a higher premium. And I will tell you, although they don't love it, they do tend to at least feel like that they've been brought into the mix. They understand a little bit better. Employers can't escape these increases in costs, guys. So, as we said, higher healthcare costs correlates to higher premiums. Let's talk about the difference between fully and self-insured. Anybody by chance know if you're fully insured? Wonderful. How about self-insured? Woo! All right. So the difference between the two just is that the model lies in the risk allocation. So when you're fully insured, essentially, the financial risk of the insurance falls on the insurance company. When you're self-insured, your entity takes on that risk itself and has to be able to pay out whatever may come. Costs a lot of money, truly. What we're showing here in this slide is really important. And I'm sorry, this is all CERB data, which is phenomenal. If any of you going into contract negotiations, there's also the salary counterpart to this, but today we're focusing mainly on the rising healthcare and pharmacy. But this is a phenomenal tool, especially if you're, again, I should have started with this, I apologize. I have 14 contracts that I negotiate at any given time, revolving, right? So what we do is rely on this guy, and it's wonderful. It's a great tool. Also, another plug for CERB, you can go out to their website and also find any of these contracts that were, not this is out there too, but any contracts that you're looking for. If you're looking for comparables, go out there and use that. It's a great tool. So guys, here we go with the statewide average for the difference between fully insured and self-insured. The top table is going to show you that for fully insured, they're pretty comparable. The difference between the comparison between fully and self-insured is pretty comparable. But you will see on the next slide, or excuse me, the next table down below, a little bit of a shift, which is interesting. So the average annual cost of family plans increased by 6.5% for fully insured plans and 5.8% for self-insured plans. So what the data is showing is that the fully insured plans increased a little bit higher than the self-insured plans. Medical premium increases. This is very, very, very interesting. So what the data shows is that as salaries continue to stay pretty stagnant, salary increases, roughly around in 2025, 3.4%. What you're seeing is that both the family and single premiums are showing an increase of 6.35% and 5.9%, both above what people are getting in salary raises. Does that resonate with anybody here? I know. So what do? We're gonna get there, but we are gonna go into cost-saving options. But I do just want to stress that because that is what us as employers and employees are dealing with realistically. Salaries have gone up somewhat, as we talked about in the beginning. But what we are seeing at a more increased rate is increase in health insurance. I ask this question a lot, but what is the number one reason? If you were to ask anybody, not us working in the public sector, but what do you think the public's perception of public employees, what is the number one reason they work for a public sector? Yes, that's a great answer. So that's why this is so important. What becomes tricky, guys, is when that wage is staying right here, but those benefits, remember what people think the only reason we work for the public sector is for, continue to go above what we're actually making potentially. Has anybody experienced a net loss in their paycheck due to health insurance? Whoa, that's good. We're gonna talk about that, yeah. So we really need to change the trajectory of how we're thinking, especially from an HR perspective. When you're looking to hire, when you're onboarding, we're gonna get there. But basically, we wanna make sure that everybody understands the premiums continue to increase, and they more than likely will continue to increase for a little bit longer. So the statewide average that the employee pays is 13.8%, which means the employer is paying anywhere from, in this specific case, so I'll give Trumbull County. Trumbull County actually is at 88% the employer pays. The employee pays 12%. That's how we've gotten a little bit creative and being able to keep those prices down somewhat for the employees while trying to elevate their salaries. However, we can do that because we're self-insured, which means we have the coffers there. However, remember, the higher your claims go, you're draining that fund. What goes hand in hand with medical increases is the pharmaceutical increases, the spend. Pharmaceutical spend continues to increase nation and statewide. These are mainly driven by, there's a common high spend drug category that I've included here for you guys. Research points to if any of your employees are on any of these high spend pharmaceutical drugs, your spend's gonna be high, all right? Big wave of the GLP-1s, that's going on right now. The biologics, there's a lot going on around biosimilars. For example, you know, Stelara is great, but they're now finding that there's another drug comparable that can be lesser spend. And I highly encourage you to look at, if you're self-insured, your pharmacy actual tiers. Okay, work with, I don't know if some of you, we have a broker, but I do work hand in hand with that broker. It's a great time to really hone in on, do you have customary drug lists? If so, you may want to look at those and make sure that they're right sized. So that way you're trying to reduce the spend in pharmacy. Make sure that there's those exemptions when it's needed. But for example, to qualify for a GLP-1, on our plan, you have to have a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. That helps reduce some of that spend. What can be done is what everybody's sitting here looking at me saying, lady, you're all doom and gloom. But there are some really good things that we want to talk about as far as cost-saving options. The first thing is a consortium. So Cheryl, who's sitting here with CCAO, happens to be, they have a, I don't want to use the wrong, consortium, SEPCO. And what a consortium does, and you'll see it very highly in school systems, school districts, but it's really picking up, guys. Statewide, countywide, townships, smaller municipalities tend to go in together into this what's called consortium. It's a risk-sharing pool, just like our insurance is. If any of you are county, you know, you're insuring your buildings, you're insuring your cars, your auto fleet, errors and emissions. It's the same thing, essentially. But what you are going to be doing is you're going to be sharing that cost with a larger pool, which you'll see here gives you a little bit of leverage. So when they're going out to bid, you have a larger pool, and it tends to drive down cost. That's what this slide is showing here. Another cost-saving option, more good news, worksite wellness programs, really beneficial. Trumbull County has, I am so excited about this, guys, truly. We have had a record-breaking amount of people sign up. Now it's incentivized. I probably should have started with that. But the education, supportive enrollment, on-site wellness programs, including but not limited to free flu shots, mammograms, those things, guys, those types of cost-saving options will save your claims potentially long-term. I know it's not going to hit you short-term, but what it may do is it may be preventative. It may, potentially find something that would be a very large spend for you in the future. If anybody has any questions about workness wellness programs, our information's on the back, but I highly encourage you to reach out. There's so many things. We do have an incentive. Again, we give our employees anywhere from range from $5 to $25 to even $50 gift cards, depending on did they meet. So for example, one of the things that we're doing is a walking challenge. Did they walk enough? Did they hit their miles? What we're trying to do there is target, obviously get people moving, get the body moving. It's a good thing. Another cost-saving options that we have is opt-out incentives. So this one is a little bit, controversial. So what I wanted to do is really break down Table 47. So I'm just going to give you a large example. If an employer spends $30,000 roughly on a health insurance plan, you pay, that's your 88% for my example in Trumbull County, we pay 88%. That equates to roughly $30,000 per employee in spend. The employee pays the 12%, right? But let's say we offer them a minimum or any type of incentive to opt out of the healthcare plan, meaning they have valid coverage somewhere else, whether it's through a spouse or through a parent if they're under 26 still, whatever the case may be. You could choose to incentivize them What that would look like, again, is if we spend $30,000 roughly on a healthcare plan as the employer, and the employee, even if you incentivize them at $100 a month, let's just say, for a single plan, we'll say $10,000 a year. For a family plan, we'll say, $1,000 or $1,400. What that's doing is that's reducing, so you're not spending that $30,000 anymore on a health insurance plan. You're only paying out that incentive, which is way less, which will correlate to less claims, obviously, because the employee is not using your health insurance. And essentially, that saves everybody money in the long run, pending they have that option to have another healthcare provider. That's a bare minimum, just so you know. Spousal restrictions. This one's not as fun. Trumbull County has not done this yet. We hope to not have to do this. But guys, as you will see here, the data does show that statewide, more than 45% of employers who've completed the survey have a spousal stipulation for employees whose spouses have other means of acquiring medical coverage. That is a big deal. Also think about this. Remember when we asked the question of why do people come to work for the public sector, or what the perception is those benefits. Imagine you're onboarding a new employee and, hey, by the way, your spouse isn't eligible to be on our plan, okay? It's a levy that you can pull if you absolutely have to. It's tending to become more of the norm, but it is a way to save costs. Yes?
So earlier you mentioned workforce changes with many older folks leaving workforce, bringing in younger folks. Will that help offset some of this claim issue related stuff?
That's a really good question. So you would think that, I'm going to be honest with you, you would think that that is a direct correlation. However, I will tell you that it's not necessarily always the elderly generation that drives claims. It can just as much be a 26-year-old with a severe or very, very different type of cancer. I'll just put it to you that way. So really, there's no one size fits all. Also, people ask me all the time about, okay, let's say this. I feel like we should tier our program, right? So we're gonna have a single plan, a single plus one, which is just a single plus a spouse, and or a family plan. Why is it fair that the family plan pays this much, but they have 6 kids and they have whatever the case may be, but I'm paying this much? Well, the reality is you would have to actually look at the claims. A lot of it is perception, guys. So you would think that that family with 6 kids is spending more. That may not be the case necessarily. Again, you have to look at what the claims are saying to you. That's how you can target any type of cost savings. It could be the employer plus one that's driving your high spending claims, and not necessarily the family of 6.
One follow-up question regarding tiering based upon employees' age. So at one age rate, they're at this rate. Once they hit this next age rate, the premium goes up. Is anything like that going on?
So to answer your question, that can go on. It does not go on where currently for me in Trumbull County because of the unions, obviously. So I'll be honest with you, the unions tend to want to see one for all, like a one size fits all. As a matter of fact, I had a cost containment meeting, I'm just being honest with you guys, last week with our, oh boy, at least 6 out of the 13 unions were there. And their main concern was, we don't want to feel like we're subsidizing everybody else's health care. And I used that exact example of a family of 6, because they said to me, you know, you can have all these people on a plan, and we're all paying the same amount. However, again, when I broke down that claim spend to them, not anything medically sensitive, obviously we didn't discuss, but it did really open their eyes to, it doesn't necessarily, it's not a one size fits all when you're talking about healthcare. Nothing is apples to apples, truly. Another cost-saving option, this is something that Trumbull County is doing right now. It is a little bit of an upfront cost, so roughly $10,000 is what we have contributed to a dependent eligibility audit. But what the hope is that once you've done that dependent eligibility audit, you may find that there is, ex-spouses who aren't on your plan, hopefully children, obviously after the birthday 26, they're no longer eligible for the plan. But a lot of times things do get missed, guys. We're human, right? So things get missed, and we need to audit to make sure that we're not carrying on any of that additional liability that a claim could be costing us that we're not even supposed to be on the line for because they're not eligible for that plan. All right, I'm gonna rush. Public's, okay, that was healthcare. So I just want to take a minute there. Was there any other questions on healthcare? All right. Public service characteristics and civility concerns. So this is also just public service values and workplace civility. Why public service characteristics matter and civility and bullying concerns. So what I want to look at this is from a hiring perspective. When you're hiring within your entities, what's the first things that we do? We look at resumes, we look at their experience, we look at their education, their certifications, you may or may not call references, whatever your hiring policy is. However, does your public entity spend enough time really honing in on those public characteristic traits that you're looking for? For example, the nature of public service helps create a respectful workplace where bullying and incivility are less likely to happen. Oh no, what did I do? Here's how shared values and characteristic traits promote civility. Mission-driven culture. When you're interviewing somebody, are you honing in on whether you're united by a commitment to serve the public and working towards a public good? Or are you focused on benefits? You know, that happens too, but. Transparency and accountability. Public oversight is at a high right now. Public wants to see open, transparent processes. We have to be able to encourage professionalism and discourage disrespectful behavior. Clear rules and protections. Civil service policies and procedures set fair expectations and reduce misuse of power. Codes of conduct and ethics always lead with ethics. Professionalism and respect are core values reinforced by policies. Commitment to inclusion. We serve all residents. That requires respecting differences and working with inclusivity. So, collaboration, teamwork across departments fosters trust, reduces isolation, and supports civility. Why the public is concerned with what we do and how we do it. Examples of civility concerns in public currently, things that we tend to see is disrespectful communication. I cannot tell you how many times a person calls and feels that they were treated disrespectfully by one of our employees. That is a sucker punch to the gut, right? If we can try to look at that up front, maybe, perhaps, look less, of course, certifications matter. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Certifications matter, education matters, all of that matters. But are we really looking at the characteristics and traits that that employee has and can bring to the table? Are they somebody who can exude public service traits? Undermining colleagues, openly dismissing staff input in meetings, or spreading gossip, those are things that, we hear about all the time. Government employees, they are just sitting there, doing whatever they do. No, that's not the case. So we want to make sure we're looking for people who are representative of what we're looking to hire in the workforce. Hostile body language, eye rolling, dismissive gestures, or visibly ignoring others in public meetings, address it. Unprofessional emails or social media posts about colleagues, all things we talked about this morning, right? Those are things that we do not want to show in public employment. Why public entities address civility concerns? To maintain public trust. We are supposed to be of the utmost high standards. Since employees serve residents, we have to maintain that public trust. To prevent small issues from escalating to hostile work environments, which they do happen, right? To protect workplace morale and efficiency, to ensure compliance with codes of conduct or personnel policies that require professionalism. Public entities often emphasize civility because public employees work in politically visibly environments. We interact with the public, we represent the public, and we serve the public. And if we lead with that and look to hire employees that have that type of mentality, we will be better in the long run.
I'm going to jump in a little bit because I don't want to let Cheryl escape without explaining everything going on at the
Well, Cheryl is up.
State House. Was your time, did I cut you off too much or just about right?
Nope,
to transition?
Cheryl's up. Yep.
And by the way, as a preview, when Cheryl's done in 10 minutes, I want you to know I've pre-tested one of the cookies to make sure they're good and they are fresh and wonderful. And I want to make sure I got one before they were all gone. So Cheryl's going to wrap up this segment in about 10 minutes with the State House and any questions that come up. So go ahead. Thank you.
So somehow I missed what Terry was promoting. Is there like a really good snack after me or something?
Oh, we stand between the cookies.
Okay, that's good. I like Cheryl's cookies. Yeah. So just to sort of look at, I'm a big change of behavior person. If you looked at Alex's slides, they had all this information, all this detail, and lots of color. I have one slide. It is black and white, and it's really big picture. But I purposely left it black and white because I'm not trying to repeat a presentation I used to give during the Great Recession back in 2008 and 9, where I would start by saying public entities have no money, and I would have visuals with stick figures because that's all we could afford. But I wanted to convey just a different tone because in the public sector, I think we're getting to a point in time where maybe post-COVID and ARPA money, we are now evolving into what some might say a right size in terms of resources and funding that government has that is going to be tighter than what we've seen in recent years. So that was sort of the feel I wanted to project with this slide. A lot of talk about telework for folks who are state employees in here. Okay, you probably recall the legislature wanting to sort of get into this space in terms of how state employees can do their jobs. In the end, the governor was wanting to retain control over how the administration manages its workforce. I don't need to tell you anything about those details, but I think what you all might be seeing, what I'm seeing from the outside world, is the implications that some of the state workers might start looking for positions elsewhere where they can get more flexibility because that flexibility has changed. And I say that as a beneficiary of that situation because our office got to hire a former state staffer who wanted flexibility, who was not going to have flexibility. Another thing in the budget, the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and other employer groups pushed really hard for a child care cred program. Not going into a lot of details, this is a pilot program. The legislature included $10 million for 1 year. So not sure what happens in year 2. But this was sort of a watershed kind of moment that the legislature, supporting the Ohio Chamber and other businesses, employers' perspective of how can we address workforce shortages and how can we help with this child care realm. This program has a targeted population. It also is structured so the employer pays 40%, employee pays 40%, and the state would pick up 20%. Another thing in the budget that got rolled in is cybersecurity policies for local governments. Municipalities or cities and counties have to have these policies in place by January 1st of 2026. From an audit perspective, auditor of state will look at those when they do your audits. Then the smaller jurisdictions have until, I think it's July of 2026 to get those policies in place. So just big picture comments. My cheat sheet. Okay, what's after cyber? Public records. What is it? Public records. Okay. So, more technology. Who has tried to use an app that takes meeting minutes for you or attends virtual meetings for you? Yeah, I tried to do this like right at the beginning. I thought I was being really cool. Then I'm in this virtual meeting with an attorney who's like, hey, Subler, cut this off. We don't want this lawyerly meeting being recorded. I had no idea I was recording it because I had no clue what I had done. Long story short, the budget bill includes some public records provisions so that if public employees are using this type of technology to help individuals take notes, those notes can not be deemed a public record as long as the individual retains the work product from that app or AI software. However, a lot of those apps sometimes will send it out to everybody else who is on the meeting. If it gets sent out to everybody else, it is now a public record. So there's some more stuff in there on public records. Take a look. The other thing I wanted to cover real quick, then we'll get to the exciting property tax, because I'll have 2 minutes to cover property tax.
Which is all we're allowed.
Yes.
We don't wanna
Is
talk.
AI and training. So I go to sessions, I learn all about AI, and sometimes I'm still left with, well, can someone help train me on AI? What does this actually mean? How can I use it in my world? So we recently at CCAO came across something you all probably know, but the state has this tech cred training program, and there's some AI companies out there. One that we are working with is OWL, OWL-AI. So our office and some counties are sort of piloting this company, and Tech Cred covers it. It was like, oh my God, they will reimburse you for this training. So we are very hopeful this company, other companies will plug into Tech Cred and actually help us all sort of like build our muscles to actually use it. So I'm doing a plug in case any of you want to go down this road too. And in terms of property tax, local government people, property tax people, raise your hands. Probably are similar to me. There's this dark cloud sort of over your world that's going to stay there until November of 2026. Don't really know if this ballot initiative that says there can be no more real property tax in the state of Ohio starting January 1st of 2026 is actually going to get on the ballot in November, and if it does get on the ballot, will it pass? There's polling out there that says, well, if it was on the ballot today, 61% of Ohio's voters would support this. I don't know if that's true or not. What I can tell you is many of us think that is because it's a one-sided campaign. If you just ask people, you want to stop paying property tax? Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to stop paying taxes? Me. But I don't think a lot of folks understand what the implications of that are. They don't understand how property tax is vitally important to first responders, to senior programs, to the schools, to DD services. But more importantly, it's important to local control. Local control comes into this picture because when you look at voted property taxes, that is the local entity, that is the voter, that is the community deciding what type of services they are willing to pay for. It's what sets people apart from other jurisdictions. If local property taxes go away, we're in a world of hurt. But secondly, there probably would have to be something at the state level. It's not going to be the huge amount that's collected under property tax, but it'd have to come sort of down from the state. And do you all want the state to decide which local programs get funded, how they get funded. Is it more based on population, urban areas, rural areas? Who knows? But what I see happening, in addition to Terry making his way over, because I'm at 2:15, but is this dark cloud and stress that's present in the public sector world, because we are hearing how management in the public sector is starting to tighten their belts, because what if, maybe put off special projects, maybe put off filling some discretionary positions until we get through November of 2026. But the last point I want to make is I just think it's creating a lot of anxiety and stress. And so the more we can try to stay focused on what we can control, plan for the worst, and work to educate the workforce in the public sector, your vendor partners, the chambers of commerce, the Farm Bureau, work to educate the value and the importance of maintaining local control and not totally eliminating property tax in Ohio, but looking at reforming property tax and right-sizing, but not eliminating.
I'm going to jump in. Thank you. You only ran a minute or two over, but both of you
Not
were
bad.
excellent. Nice
Pretty
round of
good.
applause for Alex and Cheryl. Thank you.